This week's headlines from the Premier League are:
Liverpool lament at the late show from Leeds as Salah's surprise interview rocks Anfield.
Aston Villa moving to the Champions League places with a win that dents Arsenal's title ambitions.
Manchester City brush Sunderland aside with more magic from Phil Foden, but Pep's not happy with Cherki.
Tottenham get their win at home with a clean sheet against Brentford.
Brilliance from Bruno and another Gordon penalty get Newcastle past Burnley.
It's a tough day for Daesh on his return to Everton.
Crystal Palace climbed to fourth, a stunner from Mark Gahey as he added a 0 to his price tag for January.
Chelsea are free without a win after they had a laboured draw against a stuttering Bournemouth.
And West Ham still can't win at Brighton, who have Ritter to thank for a point game.
Hi, I'm Steven Caulker.
And I'm Rob Wotton. Welcome to Kicking Off. It is the weekly podcast that provides analysis and opinions on the biggest talking points in football. And I tell you what, just steal them. Go down the pub or go to work and pass them off as your own. It's as simple as that. So let's kick off on Kicking Off with the big story of the weekend, and that was Mo Salah's interview after that draw with Leeds. Effectively, what he was saying, Steve, was that he has been frozen out at Liverpool. Thrown under the bus was an expression he used. He said that Slot and him had a good relationship last season, but it appears they're no longer speaking. He's invited his family to the game against Brighton, the last one before the AFCON. And he said he'll be out there to say goodbye ahead of that trip to Africa. Right, having heard all of that, what do you make of this?
I think it was a really emotional reaction to a disappointing month, let's say. It's been a disappointing season for Liverpool so far, but in particular, it's been a disappointing month for Mo Salah. He's not in his best of form, and that's fine because all the best players in the world, which he's one of, can dip in and out of form. That's completely normal. Where I sympathise with him is I think he feels a lack of loyalty, a sense of betrayal maybe, that, okay, so I can stay with you for 8 years, I can ride the storms, I turned down how much money was it a year or two ago in Saudi, and then when the opportunity to drop me comes around because you've got these new star signings, I'm out the window. I sense a lot of frustration, and I do believe that statement was made out of anger. Having said all that, I don't think it was very wise.
What the stats tell us is this season in the Premier League, after 15 games for Liverpool, Mo Salah has 4 goals. At this stage last season for Liverpool, after 15 Premier League games, he had 13 goals. He said he has earned the right to be in that team because of what has gone before. Has any player earned a right to be selected, whether on form or not?
I believe you're only as good as your last game. I don't believe that when any player signs a contract, there's ever a guarantee that you're going to play. There's a high possibility when Mo Salah signed that contract, he did believe that he would play every single game. And I think most people at that club believed he would play every single game. However, he's not in form. Liverpool aren't in form. And Arne Slot has every right to try new things. Being a player myself, I haven't been on the bench, frustrated, angry. The team concedes a late goal, drop more points. Emotions are high. Emotions are extremely high at that point. And he's acted out. However, saying what he said behind closed doors to the manager's face, to the director's face, to the owners, whoever he wanted to speak to, I've not got an issue with that at all. And the best players believe they are the best players. That's why they stay at the top for so long. So in terms of his beliefs about how he's earned the right, I totally get what's inside his own head. However, saying it in the public has now put Arne Slot in a very, very difficult position, and also the guys in the change room, because it is a little bit awkward. He may possibly be sat at home right now regretting the fact that he has acted out in emotion, because one part of what I was told actually a little bit later on in my career was, you're paid to be professional. And those words stuck with me. And I'm sure one or two people may be saying that to Mo over the last couple of days.
Yeah, because Dominic Szoboszlai at the end of the game did an interview on the pitch, emotions still running high. He was asked how How on earth do Liverpool turn this around was the question in so many words. His response was, as long as we all stick together, we will get through this, is what he said. And then we have Mo Salah, without having kicked a ball in anger, slinking out into the mix zone and giving that interview. That's not you all pulling together, because what Salah was saying is, I don't care who else plays, but I play. Whether the other player is scoring 20 goals in a game, I still get to pay because I'm Mo Salah and I've earned it. That's not really sticking together, is it?
It's not sticking together. And as I said, it puts Arne Slot in an extremely difficult situation. As manager, he has to make decisions that are best for the team and best for Liverpool Football Club. That's what he's paid to do. Now, what is best for Liverpool Football Club and what's best for that changing room? Now Mo Salah has said such a thing. Do you side with Mo Salah and say, actually, I'm going to put you in on Tuesday, which then will have other people and other players go and knock on the manager's door going, hold on. What? So he has a little outburst in the media and now all of a sudden he's back in the team and I'm out. How does that add up? It's a really, really difficult situation for Arne Slot to be in. And one thing I would say in my experience is it isn't always down to the manager. So it can look like it from the outside. The manager makes this decision, that decision. Listen, there's no way in this world that Liverpool would have gone, here's a blank checkbook, you go and sign whoever you want for whatever amount of money and we won't do any checks or inputs or impossible, absolutely impossible. There would have been people that would have had input in those signings. And maybe, just maybe, that those people have put a little bit of pressure on Arne Slot or would have asked questions of Arne Slot as to why those players haven't been given the opportunity to play together. I'm a huge fan of Mo Salah. What he's done as a player, what he's done for Liverpool Football Club, absolutely incredible. Do I believe he's become a bad player overnight? Absolutely not. Everyone has a dip in form. However, we are paid to be professional, and that statement wasn't professional. It was detrimental to Liverpool Football Club, and Arne Slot now has a very difficult decision to make.
He certainly has. Normally, if a manager has a difficult decision to make, it's much easier if he's coming from a position of strength. He is not. However, what he does have is a natural break where Mo Salah won't be around that dressing room, won't be around the training ground because of AFCON. He is heading out there after the Brighton game. That's why I invited the family down for that one. What it may be on Arne Slot's mind as well is rather worrying figures that surround Mo Salah post Africa Cup of Nations. He tends to normally have a dip. For example, the 21-22 season, before the AFCON, 23 goals in 26 games. Post Africa Cup of Nations, 7 in 21. So there was a marked drop-off from Salah post-AFCON. Can you understand why that is, having played in it? And is that maybe on a Slot's mind, get him away to that, maybe the January transfer window, maybe the call of Saudi will be more enticing for Mo Salah?
I don't believe that Mo Salah will be at the club in January. I can't see a way back from this statement. I just can't see how Arne Slot and Liverpool can manage the situation. Because if they choose to side with Mo Salah, backtrack, whatever way you want to describe it, there'll be too many players inside that dressing room that will have something to say about it. Now, some of them may be in support of Mo Salah, absolutely. That'd be completely natural. But there'll be too many players in that dressing room that give their all that would say, hold on, that's not right. And I believe they would be correct in saying so. However, in terms of his performance before or after or even during AFCON, I don't believe it could ever be questioned. I just don't. I just believe that players come in and out of form. We see it with Ronaldo. We see it with Messi. As the old cliches goes, form is temporary, class is permanent. Mo Salah will be back to his best. I just don't believe that would be in a Liverpool football shirt.
I never saw that with Steven Caulker. Always 10 out of 10.
You couldn't have watched many games, Rob.
What a corker.
So here we go. Every week we ask Stephen who has had a Steven Caulker this weekend. Stephen, who have you gone for this time?
This week, it's the man who delivered a spectacular Rabona assist. It is Rayan Cherki. I thought his performance was top. His little bit of skill before he made that cross was outstanding. And the fact that Phil Foden hit the back of the net with it, it just made it even more special. The real question I've got is why Pep isn't the biggest fan of him doing that week in, week out. I'm going to throw that one back to you.
Yeah, is Guardiola a moaner or is Cherki a turkey for doing that? The argument Pep put forward was Messi would never have done anything like that. But Man City were dominant at the time. They'd already got the game won. It begs the question, Stephen, is football just about winning or is football about entertaining? And I can understand Pep as a manager who just wants to win, doesn't he? What maybe I think could be happening, you tell me, is he's trying to keep a young man's feet on the floor and not let him get too carried away here.
I think so, because Pep's a very intelligent man and he's managed a lot of top talents. So I'm very sure that he knows a good player and he knows what players are capable of. And I'm also sure that he knows what it's like with them off the pitch. And often, as we talked about with Salah earlier, they come with big egos. And as a young player coming from Lyon, now at Man City, getting the headlines this weekend, getting the Steven Caulker trophy as well this weekend.
That's just eclipsed everything.
Absolutely. Well, I'm sure it'd be the highlight of his career so far. But having those moments, for sure, and then your manager coming out and saying he didn't completely criticize it. When I read the little snippet, I was like, oh, okay, this is a bit harsh from Pep, talking about he doesn't want players to play like this, and Messi never did it, and Messi's the best in the world, so Messi doesn't do it. That's how I first took it. And then when I read it a little bit deeper, I said, okay, that's not what Pep is saying. Pep's saying he's a fantastic player and he's capable of doing this. However, if it went out for a goal kick, he would be very, very, very frustrated. And I can understand that. And one thing I would say, which was really interesting, is I took a look at his goal record and his assist record. He hasn't scored and assisted that many in his career, despite playing a lot of games. He's played a lot of games, over 150 plus. He hasn't actually scored and assisted that many. So for me, that was quite interesting that maybe he does choose in those moments to produce a little bit of skill instead of maybe providing a simple assist. But isn't that what we go to football matches for? I do. I put on the maybe because I'm a neutral nowadays, but I put the television on and I want to be entertained. Absolutely. So I'm all for it. I want to see more of it. You've got Jeremy Doku doing it on one side of the pitch. You've got Phil Foden producing magic in the middle of it, and you've got Rayan Cherki come off the bench and produce even more magic. I'm all for it and I want to see more.
Yeah. I mean, when Pep Guardiola name drops Lionel Messi, I guess you kind of just go, okay.
Case closed. You can't really argue with Pep, and I'm not attempting to. I'm just giving my personal perspective that the game needs more of it.
What a Reggie blinker.
So now, time for one of my favourite parts of the show, where I get to ask you a question. Who, in your opinion, this week had a Reggie blinker stinker?
A Reggie blinker stinker. You know what, Stephen? I was going to give it to Chris Kavanagh for his assist, in inverted commas, for Everton, one of Everton's goals. Sean Dyche was furious about it. Yeah, well, he said he definitely got a touch. Kavanagh said he jumped over it. Has Kavanagh never heard of VAR? But today, Reggie blinker. Now, I don't know whether to give it to the Chelsea 11, whether to give it to Enzo Maresca, or whether to give it to Moises Caicedo. Okay, here's the background. Phenomenal victory over Barcelona. Everyone is raving. Estevao is the hero. Then came Arsenal, down to 10 men, held on for a draw. In fact, could have even won it. And then we get to Leeds away. And they were a humiliating defeat for Chelsea against rivals of yesteryear. They weren't just beaten, they were thumped. And then down to Bournemouth, where the game was as grey and miserable as the weather. Now, I said Moises Caicedo because if you look at the drop-off in Chelsea from the dizzy heights of Barcelona and then to the Arsenal game, did it all coincide with Moises Caicedo's red card? We used to talk about Palmer FC for Chelsea and that without him, they were nothing. But I wonder whether Chelsea, without Caicedo, because what he allows the other players to do in that side, is maybe the one who's had a Reggie blinker, because that red card is costing his teammates a lot with his absence.
So you've been around the bush. You still haven't answered my question. Is it Caicedo, who didn't even feature in this weekend's game? Is it Enzo Maresca, or is it somebody else?
Well, I think it's both, to answer your question, because Caicedo is so instrumental to how Maresca wants to play. He is the equivalent, if you watch him in the flesh, he is the equivalent of three players, the way he plays. He screens that back four, which is normally a three. He fills in at left back as well as rampaging forward. The filling in at left back is vital because of what Maresca wants to do with Cucurella. Cucurella quite often turns up in the centre forward position from a left back spot. That is only possible because of Caicedo. That is where the goals and trying to break down teams who sit with a deep block. That's how Chelsea tried to do it. You take Caicedo out, you cannot play that way. So, am I blaming Caicedo for a red card that he shouldn't have got? He got caught up in a moment in a London derby. But then you ask whether it's Maresca or Caicedo. Well, Maresca then has to come up with a plan B. And I think this has quite often been a criticism from Chelsea fans is Maresca hasn't got a plan B. When you're trying to break down a team with a low block who defend deep, or when your backs are against the wall, it doesn't work so well sometimes without Caicedo. So maybe, is it Maresca for not coming up with a plan B, or is it Caicedo for a red card? It's a mixture of the both, my friend. I love this part of kicking off. This is the time when I get to ask Stephen, what on earth? Okay, Stephen, what on earth is going on with Aston Villa? Let me read you some facts and figures here. After 5 games this season, they were 18th with just 3 points, no wins. Now they're 3 points off the top. What on earth is going on with Villa?
Emery, I've got one name to mention. Since he's been in that club, he has absolutely transformed them. They've been incredible. And I remember being on the radio at the start of this season, I think 5 games in, whatever it was, might have been 4 games in, the pressure was just building. And there was that question mark around, is Unai Emery the man to lead Villa forward? And I was like, what? Are we really having that conversation after what he has achieved at Villa? He's certainly the man to lead them forward, and he is doing exactly that. What a team and what a manager. And to do it against his old side, I'm sure felt pretty sweet for him. There's no better feeling with a 95th minute winner. It's just the best.
The next, what on earth? What on earth is this all about? Daniel Farke absolutely seemed to be gone against Manchester City, changes it to a back three at half-time. They had this horrible run of games coming up, Leeds United. He kept with that back three against Chelsea, an absolute thumping win, and also played a black back three against Liverpool and managed to get a point. The back three allows 2 up front as well. So let's start at the Leeds defensive end. What on earth is the difference as a centre half to you playing a back three rather than a back four?
So for me, there's the biggest factor in whichever formation you're going to play the back is communication. First and foremost, you need to be able to communicate. Secondly, you need legs. So it's really important, especially at the back end of my career. I used to actually feel quite a bit more comfortable in a back three because it meant that I just had that little bit more support around me. The really interesting bit for me is that you said they have the 2 up front. Now, that's something we don't see very often. And I feel that's been the biggest difference because conceding 3 at home against Liverpool isn't necessarily a defensive masterclass. However, scoring 3 against Liverpool is amazing, is absolutely incredible. And that's where I think it's really, really had a real positive effect on them. And they got the 2 goals at City as well and the goals against Chelsea. I also need to give a shout out to Ellen Road, because that's a tough place to go, right? That is a tough place to go. So I'm not surprised at all to see them at home, rocking Liverpool, rocking Chelsea. I went there at Tottenham as a Tottenham player, and unfortunately was on the receiving end of a defeat as well. And that was when they were in the Championship it was an FA Cup tie. So I know what a fortress that place can be. And I'm delighted for Daniel Farke, because managers nowadays are under so much pressure and they are given so little time. So to see him have a smile on his face, to go and get 2 big results against the Giants as a promoted team, fantastic for him. And I hope he's enjoying this moment before the Christmas period starts and he has to do it all over again.
Yeah, I think Tosin and Badia Shield, I think they said, what on earth is going on there? I've left a few words out when they saw the front 2 of Leeds running towards them. I think it was, what on earth is going on here? Let's do another what on earth while we got time. Let's squeeze this one in. Now, the last section was called Reggie Blinker. We were toying with the idea of calling it a Weston Super Mare, but Weston Super Mare have had a dream this weekend. What on earth is going on for them?
The FA Cup just keeps on delivering. That is why, for me, it's one of the best cup competitions in the world. And I hated that period. Do you remember that period of about 10 years ago where teams were taking it less serious? And it was like, oh no, let's just focus on the Premier League and the Champions League. Nonsense. FA Cup is here to stay. And I'm loving the fact that you see smaller sides now have the potential to go up and play against the likes of Man City. And that's what their striker is exactly hoping for in round 3. So delighted for them. And I hope they do get that big tie. And I hope it's at home, because first of all, would be a sellout. Great moment for the club to get some money in and obviously build on their resources for next season. But what a moment for the players.
Steven gets his balls out.
Now is the time when we get to see Steven's crystal balls as he looks into his crystal ball to predict what's going on. And he's fresh from the jubilance of correctly predicting 2 right last week, and that was City to win at Fulham and Arsenal to beat Brentford. So anyway,
Just better than nothing.
Let's move on. Let's go to the Monday Night Football. It's Wolves against Manchester United. A win for Manchester United, and they'd be just outside that top 4.
Okay, despite the fact that Rob Edwards has gone to Wolves and he's obviously hoped that he would turn things around, I've not seen any sign of it. So I'm going to go with an away win for United, and I'm going to go 2-1. United are not ones for keeping clean sheets.
It is a busy week in Europe, of course, and it's not going to come much bigger than this one, although there is one later we'll look at. So equally big ones. Let's go with that. To Milan we go. Inter against Liverpool. There'll be much scrutiny of the team sheets.
I think it's going to be really, really tough for Liverpool. I think they're in a tough moment. Form-wise, they're in a tough moment. Inside that dressing room, it looks to be even tougher in there. And they're going away to an Inter side who are top of Serie A. I can't see anything but a win for the Italians. I'm going to go 2-0 to the home side.
Oh, there was a sharp intake of breath there. Spurs are just about to do their open-top bus parade for their home win. They take on Slavia Prague. Which way is this going to go?
I don't like it when you give Spurs stick. You know that. You know that. I'm going to go.
I'm only joking.
I want to go with Spurs win. I think that they should be beating Slavia Prague. No disrespect to any team that's in the Champions League. However, Spurs should be winning. I'm going to go for a 3-0 win for Spurs.
Let's go to Chelsea, who are at Atalanta. Steve, how do you see that one?
Well, I think that Enzo Maresca, with Moses Caicedo in the team, your star man, is going to get the job done. Chelsea need to turn things around and they need a result. And I believe it's going to come this week. So fingers crossed, you'll be here smiling next week. I'm going to go for Chelsea 2-1. Certainly won't be easy.
Let's go to Leverkusen. Can't work out which is the real Leverkusen. They take on Newcastle. Which way is this going to go?
Leverkusen have had a rough start to the season. However, I think form goes out the window when it comes to these games. They're both just outside the automatic places. Newcastle 1 point out, Leverkusen 2 points out. I, unfortunately for Newcastle fans, believe that Leverkusen at home, if they turn up, because there's a big if, as you mentioned, with the stop-starts to the season they've had, I'm going to go with a home win for Leverkusen, and I'm going to go 3-2. I think it'll be action-packed.
And let's finish Caulker's crystal balls with this one. I think it's fair to say Real Madrid fans absolutely loathe Pep Guardiola. Just his name sends shivers down their spines after what he did at Barcelona. He takes Manchester City there for this Champions League game. Real Madrid against City. Which way is this going to go?
I'm going to go City. I know that Real Madrid are a very difficult team to write off, just purely because of the sheer size and history of the club and the form that Mbappe's in. But I watched them play against Liverpool, and I'm not a huge fan, which might sound bizarre to many people out there. I think City right now are in top form, and I think that they're going to get the job done. So I'm going to go with a City away win at the Bernabeu, and I'm going to go 2-1, and I'm even going to throw in there that Erling Haaland's going to get the goal. So I'm naming the goal scorer this week, which I want extra points for next week if I call it right.
You go above and beyond, my friend. Okay, that just about wraps it up for kicking off this week. My thanks to Steve. Thank you, though, for watching or listening.
If you enjoyed watching this episode of Kicking Off with Rob and Steve, then please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and drop a comment with your predictions.